가장 중요한 질문으로 넘어가 보겠습니다. 바로 차별금지법과 관련된 것입니다. 한국에서는 2007년에 노무현 정부 때 처음으로 차별금지법에 대한 논의가 시작되고 발의가 되었는데 주로 기독교계, 종교계라고 하는데 기독교계죠.을 반대로 부산되었습니다. 사실 그 안에는 꼭 성소수자 문제뿐만 아니라 학력이라든가 다른 요소들도 포함이 되어 있긴 한데요. 어쨌든 종교계는 동성애자 문제에 대해서 아주 강력하게 반발을 하고 있습니다. 그 이후에 이명박 박근혜 정권 내내 그 차별금지법을 통과시키려는 시도가 있었지만 계속 실패했고, 문재인 대통령은 후보 시절에 차별금지법에 대해서 반대한다는 의견을 종교계 인사들 앞에서 밝혔습니다. 지금 현재 한국에서는 많은 여성 단체들과 페미니스트들이 성소수자 운동권과 같이 함께 차별금지법을 도입하기 위한 운동에 함께 하고 있는데요. 우리 그 레디컬 페미니스트들 같은 경우에는 이런 차별금지법의 문제에 대해서 특히 슐라제 프리스가 젠더는 해롭다 책에서 권리 충돌이라고 부르는 개념이 있습니다. 여성의 권리와 자기의 성별이 여자라고 주장하는 남자의 권리가 충돌하는 경우가 분명히 발생하기 때문에 굉장히 우려를 표하고 있습니다. 또 한 가지는 2018년 12월 5일에 국회 법제사법위원회에서 여성폭력방지법이 통과되었습니다. 이 여성폭력방지법이 통과된 이후 여성단체들이 일제히 이 법안의 통과를 비판했습니다. 이 법안의 이름은 원래 젠더폭력방지기본법이었는데 법제사법위에서 심사를 거치는 과정에 제목과 내용을 수정해서 여성이라고 명시했기 때문에 여성단체들이 이에 대해서 반대한 것입니다. 여성단체들이 모여있는 데서 발표했던 성명서의 일부를 읽어드리겠습니다. 무엇보다 우려스러운 것은 성평등을 양성평등으로 바꾸고 피해자의 범위를 축소하려고 시도한 것이다. 여성폭력의 정의를 젠더에 기반한 폭력으로 정의하는 것이 우려스러워 성별에 기반한 여성에 대한 폭력으로 바꾼 의도는 무엇인가? 이 동어 반복적으로 여성을 강조하고 있는 정치인들은 대체 무엇에 관심이 있는 것인가? 폭력이 왜 발생하는가? 어떻게 대책을 세워야 하는가의 문제에 주목하지 않고 누구에게 일어났는가? 누구를 지원해야 하는가로 초점이 맞춰지는 것을 반대한다. 그렇게 되면 불평등한 젠더 구조에서 발생하는 여성폭력을 방지하는 것이 아니라 피해자가 될 수 있는 문을 좁히고 선별하는 방식을 방치한다. 누구나 젠더에 기반한 폭력으로부터 자유로워야 하고 누구도 피해자 지원에서 배제되어서는 안 된다. 라고 말했습니다. 이것을 요약하면 젠더에 기반한 폭력이 아니라 성별에 기반한 여성에 대한 폭력이라고 정의한 것이 이 법안의 문제점으로 여성단체들이 지적하고 있습니다. 저희는 보셨다시피 슐라제 프리스가 함께하고 있는 운동, 그리고 한국의 레디컬 페미니스트들이 함께하고 있는 운동은 지금 받으신 것처럼 성별에 기반한 여성의 권리를 주장하고 나선 것인데요. 이런 젠더라고 하는 개념이 호주나 캐나다나 영국에서는 법에 이미 새겨져 있어서 그로 인한 부작용도 굉장히 많이 발생했다고 젠더는 해롭다 책에서 아주 구체적인 사례를 들어서 설명하고 계십니다. 이 부분에 대해서 저희가 사전에 한국의 상황에 대해서 사전 설명을 드렸습니다. 그래서 한국의 차별금지법 그리고 세계의 상황은 어떤지에 대해서 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
You are in Korea in a very interesting position politically on the issue of transgenderism. Because in many, many countries in the world now, there already exists equality legislation or anti-discrimination legislation which includes some form of gender identity. And that's not so here at the moment. In Britain in 2010, the Equality Act included something called gender reassignment. It meant that actually it wasn't gender identity. Gender reassignment means that somebody has actually launched themselves on the process, something has actually happened medically and so on, so that they can actually be in that situation. But what happens with transgender rights activists is that they're constantly going for more and more and more extraordinary and extreme situations. And in Britain, in the last few years, they have been demanding legislation which allows them, mainly men, to self-identify, meaning they don't have to have any kind of medical treatment or any kind of certificate, but that any man can just sign a piece of paper saying he now considers himself a woman. It doesn't say that he has to be a woman for more than a day. It wouldn't, that they want to be able to do it on a Saturday night or whatever, right? So the demands get more and more extreme. But here in Korea, because you don't yet have anti-discrimination legislation, you are in this interesting position where you can potentially fight gender identity being included in it. And I know this is going to be very difficult because there are so many women's organisations of people who think that they're very progressive, who believe that these men's sexual rights must be in anti-discrimination legislation. But in fact, of course, if gender identity, which is, it's a wild demand, it means just what anybody thinks inside their head pretty much at any moment, if that wild demand is put into anti-discrimination legislation, it creates a clash of rights within the same legislation because it creates a protection of men's right to pretend that they are women, and to promote gender, alongside the protection of women who want to be protected from gender being imposed upon them, if you see what I mean. So you've got two completely opposite things, a clash of rights in the same legislation. So gender identity should never, never, never be in law. It puts into law the idea that there is something essential about womanhood, particular characteristics like liking to do the housework or wear high-heeled shoes. That goes into law. And the way that gender identity is defined, for instance, in the Australian legislation, it includes gestures. I think because it's based upon campy gay men and they're supposed to do campy hand gestures, right? So how do you recognise it? Well, gestures. And hair flicking. I don't have enough hair to flick, but you can't define what this gender is, and it's never defined. Gender identity is just the essential something that you have in the head. So if anti-discrimination legislation has this in it, it's got this extraordinary men's invention, which is in fact actually this fundamental factor in the oppression of women, the idea that there's some essential notion of that's natural. So it mustn't go in there. You're in a position to stop it. So that's number one. But then we have the question of what could potentially go in its place that would be progressive? Right? Now, potentially, I think there is something that could be progressive, and we don't really have the language for this yet, because we've not yet worked out what would be useful in international law. Are there any international lawyers in here? Yes? No? Yes? So we haven't worked out language that will work, but what would be good is to be able to protect people on the basis of their appearance. It would work for women, because it would mean that employers, for instance, cannot force women to wear particular kinds of clothing, like high heels, so you couldn't force gender onto women, if you like. It would work for school children. Girls could wear trousers. So there's a lot in that protection of the right to appearance that could work for women. And we know also that a lot of men, not necessarily the autogynephiles, but a lot of young men and boys who are used in prostitution are feminized for use in prostitution. It happens with the Thai lady boys. It happens in the Hijra in India, the Far Afafine in the South Pacific. Classes of boys are put into prostitution very young and feminized so that adult men can use them and pretend to be heterosexual. Now, these boys need protection, and these men need protection. Often they will become refugees in order to escape persecution. So they need protection as well on the grounds of their appearance. They're not women, they're not girls, but they may have a feminized appearance and they need to be protected on that basis and not attacked for it. So it would be good to have a form of words which could go into anti-discrimination legislation that will protect both women from having femininity thrown upon them and to actually get them rights even if they won't conform to those norms, and to protect young men and boys who are victimized by being made feminine because they are gay, because they're in prostitution, and so on. So I don't yet know, and hopefully in Korea you will begin to work this out, and I think it needs to be international so we can create language that will work internationally in the end, that will protect on the grounds of appearance in this way, but have nothing to do with having a gender identity, believing you're actually the opposite sex, or any of those things that are so extremely dangerous.